Hey, security pros, welcome to another Hacker News webinar. And it's a special one today because we've got some groundbreaking insights into identity. And joining me is the one, the only, the master behind our partners for this webinar today, Silverfort. Hed, good afternoon. Welcome to the Hacker News webinar.
Hey, good afternoon. Thanks for having me here.
It's great to have you here. We're waiting for people to get into the room for this webinar, so we'll give it about another minute or so, just under a minute. At this point, everyone who's coming in should be a pro at knowing that I'm really good about starting about a minute in, right? Like, webinars, still virtual or not, be on time. You
Uh,
agree? Ed,
that's,
how strict are you as the CEO at Silverfort? How strict are you on meeting times?
that's a bad question. Every one of my employees watching now probably laughs because I'm always like a few minutes late. I'm just
So you run
it,
on Israel time, right?
exactly.
9 o'clock is 9-ish, right? Like it's 9-ish.
This is my schedule is back to back every
Uh-huh.
day. So the only things I can even get done are those 5 minutes when I finish early and start the next meeting late to even get things done.
I love
But
it.
I'm working on it. I'm trying to improve.
I love it. So because Head is awesome like that, we'll go ahead and get started. We're about 90 seconds into this webinar, y'all, and welcome to another awesome The Hacker News webinar series. It's great to have all of you with us. For those who don't know me, my name is James Azar. I'm a practitioner and moderator of this webinar for the awesome team behind your favorite website, The Hacker News. And I'm excited to present our partners for this webinar today. My good friend Hed Kovetz, he's the co-founder and CEO of Silverfort. We're going to be talking about the state of identity attack surface, a brand new report. You guys are getting the first words out of Hed on it because it literally just came out like a few days ago around this really fascinating report. I got the beauty of being a moderator, Hed, is you guys always give me like the good stuff before everyone else sees it, so it's kind of, I feel very special. But with that being said, Hed, welcome to the webinar. It's great to have you here, and I'm
Yeah,
really
great to be,
excited for what we're about to do, man.
yeah, great to be here, and I'm excited to be talking to you and to share this report, which I think is very insightful into what's going on in identity security, a topic that I am obviously very passionate about, and I think there's a lot of interesting stuff here to cover today.
As a co-founder of a company that deals with it, I'd say you're not very passionate about it. You're an expert at it, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I think
uh,
it's an important area that I think is only getting more and more important all the time, right? Uh, Seems like
I
attackers are going for identity more and more on every data breach we see.
I think identity is the new threat vector. It's the new endpoint, right? It's replacing kind of some of the old traditional stuff. We've kind of moved from firewall to identity, if that makes sense. Like firewall device to identity now.
Yeah.
Um, is kind of, whether human or non-human identity, by the way. I mean, just
Yeah.
the go ahead.
No, I mean, we live in the world where everybody's working from anywhere
Yep.
using devices that are not even corporate devices anymore. So it's really the last line of defense. If I can connect from anywhere, from any device, and prove that it's me, I'm part of your organization. And attackers know it, so they understand this is kind of the only thing standing between them and getting into your environment.
You bring up a really interesting kind of piece there, because I completely agree with that, and people who've seen me on these webinars before will know that I think that identity is one of the most challenging, um, um, kind of challenging security disciplines to really
Yeah.
master. Right? It's extremely challenging. There's a lot of reasons for it, but before we kind of get into that, real quick, Head, what's the reason behind you guys putting out this state of identity attack report? Like, what
Yeah.
was the motives behind investing so much money and resource into doing something like this?
When I started this company and I wanted to build something in identity security, one of the reasons was I felt, there's no other category of security where there's such a gap between, all of us, we all know that identity is a weak spot, right? A lot of attackers are going after it. But at the same time, there are a lot of solutions, and there's a gap where, if everybody has not just one solution, but many solutions for identity, why are there still so many threats that are targeting identity and so easily, so effectively? And we wanted to understand that gaps. And part of the reason for this research was to fully understand that identity as an attack surface. What are the gaps? What are the blind spots that make it such an ineffective, security area where so much money and effort and time is invested in almost every company, and still attackers are able to somehow get through. So we wanted to look at the identity attack surface in a very holistic way, and ask a lot of identity people in different companies, what solutions do they have, and more importantly, how effective are they? How broadly are they implemented? Are they even fully covering all of the things that they are supposed to cover? And the results are pretty interesting.
Yeah, you're bringing up something I think that's interesting, in the fact that a lot of people think that identity ends at MFA, right? That identity security ends at MFA. Can you debunk that for me, please?
Yeah, I think that, by the way, I'm glad that MFA is such a well-known thing that even people that are not even in the security industry understand that it is important. But it obviously doesn't stop there. I think that there are so many different tools and solutions to protect identities, from multi-factor authentication to privileged access management and protection for non-human identities, and all kinds of solutions that are trying to address different areas of this attack surface. I think that the problem with most of them, and that's what you said before, it's just it's a very complex field of security. People, wrongfully think about it as just another category, just another small category of security. It's massive and it's complex, and I think a lot of people, when they really start dealing with identity, they understand it's a whole universe of things that you need to do and you need to master. And I think that because of it, organizations are struggling to successfully implement these solutions. They're just so complex and so difficult to really apply across all your different systems, all your different users, the different environments. When you have cloud, you have on-prem, you have human users, you have non-human identities, you have so many different things that you need to cover, because the attacker just needs to find one thing that isn't protected. And if you want to really protect all these identities, all these types of authentications in different environments, it's just very difficult. And I think that organizations have implemented all these tools, so they will tell you, yes, we have MFA, we have a PAM solution, but when you really dive deep into where is it implemented, how broadly, how holistically is it really implemented, you'll see that it's almost too easy for an attacker to just go through the window, because you're only locking the front door. And that's what we have seen in the field, but we wanted to kind of understand the real numbers behind it and not just get a feeling of it. And the idea of this report was to fully understand all of these threats, that lead to account takeover and lateral movement. And we've seen so many ransomware attacks that are using identity as the way that they spread between different computers and servers. And we've seen attackers take advantage of privileged accounts and service accounts, which are the non-human identities, and so on. So we wanted to really understand two main things with this report. What is the coverage of these security controls? And what is the confidence level that people have in how they're using them? Will they actually be able to stop an attack? And that's really what we wanted to check with this report. We surveyed with the help of Osterman Research, who did an amazing job on this report. Surveyed 650 identity practitioners, directors of identity security, heads of identity security, architects across the world, in different industries to really understand the scope of these problems.
Yeah, it's I love the fact that you kind of didn't just, a lot of times you see reports and they'll be like, we asked 100 CISOs, right? And I'm like, which 100 CISOs,
Yeah,
right? Which ones? Because let me tell you something. When I was a CISO at a bank, my life was very, very different than what I do today as a CISO in critical infrastructure in the power industry. Life's very, very different.
very.
So it's good that you guys went across the spectrum. I say that because to the audience listening, a lot of times they don't really pay attention to state of a report industry or the people who validate and make that report. You know, it's like the Verizon DBIR, the Verizon Data Breach Incident Report. It's Verizon taking telemetry data they see. That's how they're getting to it, and then they're looking at customer data that's shared with them to put that together.
Yeah.
So it's a fairly accurate report from a Verizon perspective. But then a lot of the other ones you see are just like, we asked 50 people all in this position in this one industry.
Yeah.
Something. And I'm glad to know you guys went out, you got Osterman, and you did 650 different people coming into this report. And we're going to get into the report results here in just a moment, folks. So yeah, just stay tuned. And brought this to all of us. Yeah.
And as you said, we looked at different roles, we looked at different geographies, different industries, and happy to share some of the highlights of these reports today. And would love to also kind of hear your thoughts and get questions from the audience that we have here today about some of these findings. I think some of them really open a lot of questions, at least for me.
Yeah, I think I forgot to do all of my house cleaning stuff because I've been so excited about doing this webinar. But we do see all your comments, we do see all your questions on the side. We will be pulling them as we usually do. But our audience is probably the best audience on the planet. And being that they're the best audience on the planet, we always get a lot of questions. We won't get to all of them, but we'll try to get to as many as we can. And if not, you guys remember Yiftach, who's done a few of these with us before. He'll be answering all of your questions, and I'll be sharing his personal email and his phone number so you guys can send him everything.
Great.
All right, so I guarantee you he's sitting somewhere right now going like, no. But go ahead, share some of the report results with us, Hed. What'd you guys find doing this Osterman Research report on the identity attack surface?
So the first thing we looked at was we looked at the different environments, the different pieces of infrastructure that customers have. Because one thing to understand about identity, it's very fragmented and siloed today. People have identity solutions for the on-prem environment, like Active Directory. They have ones for the cloud, like Okta or Azure AD. They have ones for privileged access. They have other ones that are at the perimeter. And we wanted to understand, first of all, what is even that infrastructure that we're talking about with the different organizations across different industries. So one of the first things we looked at is, do people have identity infrastructure that is only on-prem, only on the cloud, or is it hybrid? Now, I had a strong feeling that a lot of companies are hybrid because I talked to a lot of CISOs and identity teams, but I have to say the results surprised even me with just how many of companies, more than 80% are hybrid, which kind of makes sense because, everybody has some of their applications in the cloud, and everybody has some assets, even if it's just endpoints and a couple of servers on-prem. So it's almost inevitable where you need to have a hybrid identity solution. That's important from a security perspective because obviously it complicates the fact that you need to secure all these pieces that usually don't work together. It's different security tools that you sometimes need to use. And it means that you are even more exposed because if even one of them get compromised, it's super easy to move to the other. So that was the first thing that we looked at, and there's more insights in the report itself, but this is one kind of highlight that I wanted to bring.
I got to tell you, when I saw the number, I was mind boggled that over 80% of people are still in a hybrid identity infrastructure.
Yeah.
Because you would think how many blind spots that would create.
Yeah, you're right. I'm talking to companies that have so many different pieces of their identity stack, because sometimes it's not just, and you think hybrid, you think they probably just have Active Directory and Okta, right? But it's way more complex than that. Sometimes they have multiple clouds, or they acquired another company, right? So now they inherited another piece of identity infrastructure, and it's just such a mess that even the thought of trying to secure all these pieces in something that will be even close to being consistent is difficult. So that was the
Yeah,
first thing we wanted to understand, that the infrastructure that we're looking at.
I can tell you, as someone who's been through a bunch of mergers and acquisitions, you're 100% right. You're inheriting, so much stuff on there, and a lot of times, one of our M&As we're all on prem, like literally in my current role. One of our M&As was all on prem, like they didn't have anything cloud related. They were like, we don't trust the cloud. And I'm like, well, I don't trust your on-prem. Let's have a conversation about maintaining your on-prem versus cloud. Uh,
I
you
think we have
know,
to accept that the world is hybrid, and it's multi-cloud, right? And it's complex, and we need to find a way to secure identities everywhere. I mean, just like we don't buy our endpoint protection product from Apple and Lenovo and HP, we need to find a way to also protect identities in a more consistent way across the board, because the reality is it's hybrid. And this exposes you to attacks. Somebody can compromise the on-prem environment and just use that to compromise the cloud. So you need to lock all those different windows.
so we do have a question from the audience, and this one's coming from Dwayne. Do you mind if we take it real quick, Head? Because it has something to do with hybrid deployment. So I think
Yeah,
it'd be worthy. Can a security gap in the on-prem environment impact the cloud environment?
yeah, absolutely. So as I was saying, we see a lot of data breaches where somebody took advantage of a vulnerability in the on-prem or in the cloud, by the way, with one of the cloud vendors. And once they are in, it's very easy to spread inside the network to that other identity. I'll give you an example. In the SolarWinds hack, right, a couple of years ago, they compromised the on-prem environment. Right, through the SolarWinds server, they took advantage of some Active Directory identities, those service accounts on-prem. But once they got to these on-prem identities, they were using federation in order to move to the cloud, and then took advantage and took control of the cloud identity as well. We see that in so many data breaches, where it starts from the VPN, or it starts from the cloud, or it starts from the on-prem, but it spreads around the network. So that's why you need to secure all these different pieces. I'll move maybe to the next thing, which relates to the coverage of MFA. I mean, you talked about MFA. Everybody knows multi-factor authentication. That's one of the first things you need to do in security. But is the fact that you're doing MFA in one place even matters, or do you need to do it everywhere? And obviously, what does it even mean to do it everywhere? There's so many different things. These are some of the things that we wanted to check if people even have a way to secure. So we checked all the trivial stuff, right? VPN and SaaS applications and so on. But we also asked, do you have a way to put MFA on your command line tools that attackers typically use, or your legacy applications, or your critical infrastructure? Think about shared network drives, right? Shared folders. Or do you have a way to protect all kinds of different pieces of your infrastructure that people don't often think about when they think about MFA? And you can see the findings there. The majority of people protect a relatively small portion of their assets. Now, as an attacker, and it's almost, if you think about it, almost too easy. You are in an environment, and you're trying to figure out what can you compromise, what can you access. It doesn't matter that everything. You don't need everything to be exposed. You just need some of the things to be exposed in order to start causing damage and moving around the network. And if you somehow protected remote desktop, but I can still use remote PowerShell, why do I care as an attacker? I get to choose how I'm connecting to your different systems. So, if you just block one of these doors, one of these interfaces, and I can still go through the window and use, WMI or PSExec, or connect to a shared folder on that server, then it doesn't matter that you have MFA on just one of these interfaces. So that was very interesting to see that MFA is there, but only protecting a small portion of the resources.
So brilliant. I think we do. The audience has some really great questions here, so I think we'll pull one from Nitesh. He
Sure.
says, "Why can't you protect command line, for example, with MFA?"
So command line tools, because it's an interface that was never built for MFA. It doesn't have a way to plug in to with MFA. There's no way to put an agent on the server that will trigger MFA for that. You can do that for remote desktop, but if I'm using a command line tool, I'll be able to log right around it, which happens in many data breaches. If you think about all of the modern tools like Okta or Azure AD, they're all built for web applications.
Right.
And here we're talking about a different type of interface that is still there on every endpoint, on every server, but it's just very tricky. So maybe later on, if we have time, I'll show you a way to protect command line tools with MFA, but it's something that most organizations are not even aware of.
Perfect. Yeah, great question by Nitesh, by the way.
Yeah. So the next thing we looked at is around user coverage. So it's great that you have MFA, but are you protecting all your users, or you just protect a few of them? And we've seen that a third of the companies protect almost everyone, which is great. But 2/3 of the companies protect only some of the users, maybe just the admins, maybe just some sensitive users. Now, that's a great start, I think. I think that having MFA for your privileged users or your sensitive users is a great start. But an attack can start from anywhere. I mean, we know this, right? I mean, you've probably seen this a lot. It can start from someone in HR. It can start from someone in finance. Usually, the people that have less security awareness, and then from that point, it can move anywhere.
Yeah,
So,
especially help desk. That's what we're seeing a lot recently. Is a lot of these help desk cases. Yeah.
oh yeah, I'm hearing a lot about that too, for sure. So this is another gap that we found that I think is interesting. The next thing is we looked at PAM, privileged access management. I think everybody is aware of that, pretty, almost as much as they're aware of the need for MFA. Privileged access management has also been around for a long time, but it's, I think, one of the most complex projects that you can even try to implement, as many companies learned. And what we wanted to understand is not only do you have a PAM solution, because as we all know, buying it is not enough. Where are you in implementing it? Where are you in really in the journey? So we've seen that some people don't have a PAM solution, and we know that, right? But even when we break down the people that do have a PAM solution, we've seen that many of them didn't even start, or maybe they started, but they are facing issues. So I marked here in green the two categories of companies that are actually in a positive trajectory. Either they fully implemented PAM, or they are on the way, but they are still optimistic, right? They feel like they have a way to get there. But look at how many companies either don't have PAM or didn't even start, or are stuck because of different issues, or even decided to stop the project. That's crazy. They usually invested millions of dollars, but then decided that they should just give up. That
Yeah, I
was
mean,
a
if
very
you look at this, 35%, right? 35% are somewhat successful in PAM, right? On track or fully deployed PAM.
Yeah.
Right. And
Exactly.
about 50% are working through it, and 14% are just saying we're not really messing with it.
Yeah.
And if you think of the people who stopped working on it because of difficulties, that 11.5% that you have on there, that's scary.
Yeah.
Right.
It
When you
is.
think about it, coming from a practitioner, one of the things we ask is, you know, do you have PAM deployed and across how across your critical system? Is PAM deployed across all of your critical functional systems? That's part of our vendor risk management questionnaire, right? Of how we qualify vendors. And so many times we get a lackluster answer to that, and we have to generate a call to just talk about PAM. Because they'll go, well, we've got it on our cloud environment, but we don't have it anywhere else yet. But really, as long as it's on our cloud, and you're like, no, not really. Why don't like it's significant.
I think my takeaway from this, and the MFA question as well, is these are the kind of tools that are just so complex to implement broadly that people are just buying them they're deploying them on a small portion of their assets, and they say, hey, I have MFA now, or hey, I have PAM, I'm good. I can at least check the box on James's questionnaire next time and say, yeah, I have it. And do you have it deployed broadly, or do you actually protect all your critical assets? Let's talk about it. Right? That's more complex. But that's the reality. These are very complex projects that I think really call for maybe thinking about the approach there.
Do you think a level of complexity of deployment of security tools, do you think PAM ranks in the top 3, top 5, top 10?
For sure. For sure. I think for some companies, they would put it in the top 1. It's very complex, and when you really think about it, and I'm sure many of the people in the audience know, when you really get into it, the amount of manual work of finding all these accounts and figuring out where they are even being used, who is even using them, what's going to break if I rotate their passwords, because sometimes you would just change the password and 10 applications are going to break, and you wouldn't even know. And the amount of friction. One CISO told me 2 weeks ago that he tried to onboard accounts and just see who yells, right? And he ended up taking down a whole data center for some reason. Then it okay, I get it. Let's do it slower. But how slow, right? Some people spend years trying to implement PAM and never get there. So we'll talk a little bit maybe later about what we see as some of the ways to accelerate that. But that's the current situation, which I think is interesting. Now, when we looked at that challenging journey, and we wanted to understand, do people have a plan of how to resolve it? I think that the even scarier thing is the vast majority of people don't even have a plan. I mean, either they have difficulties that they don't even know how to overcome with implementing PAM, or they know it, but it's just so complex that they just don't have the resources to do that. And I think that is, very scary, as you said, because PAM, as we know, is a critical control. So many data breaches take advantage of privileged accounts as a critical step in the data breach in order to cause more damage or take over the whole network. And the fact that the solution exists, but it's almost a theoretical solution, I can't actually get there, is concerning. And I think a lot of organizations are frustrated about that. That's what I'm here with for many people.
I will actually agree with that. I'll tell you that deploying PAM has been a thorn in my side as a practitioner for as long as I've been one. Right?
Yeah.
It's always difficult to implement. It's always difficult to put through. It's never what it's described to be. Right? Never.
Yeah. No, I agree.
All we do is you just run us on X and Y, and you're like, yeah, that's just stop it. I'm just gonna leave.
Yeah, exactly. I think whoever done it more than once, I mean, the romance is gone, right? You know what you're actually going to be dealing with, and
yeah, the romance is all gone, and everything you look at when someone says, this is really easy, you go, sure.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think not to make this even more pessimistic, but we've seen in this report that an even bigger problem there, that is a subset of that journey to PAM, is the protection of your non-human identities, service accounts, right? Those are even more difficult than the human ones. With the human ones, at least you have someone to talk to. You can go to these admins and tell them, hey, from now on, you need to do it in a different way, and they can be upset, but they will eventually accept. The service accounts, the machine-to-machine authentications, when you touch that, so many things break that most people just don't do that. And what we've seen there, and we looked at it in a few steps. The first step was visibility, which is kind of the first thing you need to do if you want to ever get to protection. We've seen that even with visibility, I mean, look at these results. The vast majority of organizations don't know where their service accounts are, who's even using them. They don't even know all their service accounts. And that is something that I hear from so many companies where they're like, before we even talk about securing their service accounts, we don't know who they are. we don't know which of our accounts are service accounts. We may have some employees who are using their personal credentials to run applications. And the account is called James, but it's running some scheduled task. And James left the company already, but those 10 applications are running using James credentials. We've seen cases where people are abusing service accounts, or they're taking them for their personal use because they have the permissions that they don't want to bother asking for. Just so many bad hygiene issues when it comes to those service accounts. It's a jungle, and people don't know what's even going on. So
and it's a true jungle by percentages, right? Because only under 6% have visibility of the jungle.
Yeah, and those are the people who said so, right? So imagine there are probably
I wonder how many people answered that saying we have full visibility, not knowing that they don't have full visibility.
Maybe, but let's assume. I mean, the fact that even that less than 6% even dare to argue that they have full visibility is interesting. I think that's one thing where everybody agrees that they just don't know what's going on.
Indeed. Right? I know we're about 30 minutes into this webinar, y'all. We're at the last 10 minutes. I know some of you have joined us in the middle of a lunch break, or you've blocked off 30 minutes. If you could give us 10 more minutes, there's a product demo coming, so don't go anywhere. We're almost done with the slideshow, I promise. Go ahead, Hed.
I'll cover a few more things quickly, and then I want to show a quick product demo that will hopefully answer some of these concerns. So one thing is about just the confidence. So we've talked about the gaps, right? The gaps are clear. What is the confidence of organizations to even be able to stop these attacks? I mean, you can see the results. Very few people have confidence in being able to stop either the initial access to the network using a compromised identity, or the lateral movement inside the network using compromised identities. So, clearly people are aware that the current strategy has many gaps. The next thing is the scope of the identity related attacks. That's the actual result. Did you get breached as a result of these lacking security controls? And you can see that very few companies didn't get breached. I mean, look at this. The amount of companies that had an identity-related data breach is almost every company, right? It's 85% almost of companies that had an identity data breach. More than half of the companies had it in the last year. So pretty concerning.
Yeah. I don't think you can go through a breach today without having it point back to identity, right? And we know that, right?
Yeah.
Data harvesting, credentials, that's credential harvesting. Sorry, I just said data harvesting. But credential harvesting is a big thing right now. Really big.
For sure. And these are really the implications here. It means, at the end of the day, organizations have been investing so much time and money in trying to address these threats, trying to secure their identities. It's one of the areas that have been getting the biggest budgets for years. And still, when it comes to all the common threats, they're almost too easy for attackers to take advantage of. And the tools are just not fully there because of just complexity and coverage issues, which we all know. I think that the scope is still surprising, even to me, after talking to so many organizations. This report still reveals a pretty bad picture. But I think that's the reality, and we need to face it. Before we can even address it and try to fix it, we need to understand that this is an issue. So I want to use the last few minutes just showing a quick demo of how we at Silverfort are addressing this. And then, again, the main focus here is really on the findings. I think many companies can try to take different approaches to fixing these issues. I'm going to use these 5 minutes to show one approach, which I think many of you will agree is pretty unique. And I'll focus only on a few very clear examples that are related to what we just showed. So what I will show now, that's our product dashboard. And at Silverfort, what we do is we actually connect to all the different pieces of the identity infrastructure. You can see in this example, I have Azure AD, Okta, Ping, Active Directory, ADFS, Radius. So, just all the way from the modern ones to the legacy ones. A full understanding of my identity attack surface. including the different users, privileged users, regular users, service accounts, which are the non-human identities. And we can see all these authentications going to the different servers, applications, all the different assets that we're trying to protect. So I want to show two things, two examples of how we can provide that security in the places where it's missing. One example that I want to show is how do we protect the different systems that don't support MFA? How do we bring MFA to them? I'm going to use an example that we just talked about, which is PowerShell. So that's an example of a command line tool that people weren't able to protect, and attackers know it, and this is why they've been using this as just the way to get around your MFA for years. With Silverfort, when I try to connect, I'm now getting MFA on my phone, even though this is an interface that doesn't normally support MFA, something that we couldn't protect until now. And I'm going to maybe just show it on the camera. This is, in this case, just the Azure MFA. The regular Azure MFA that everybody knows. This could have been your Okta MFA, your Duo, whatever. And I'm going to say, yes, this is me. And then I'm going to be able to log in. So I'm able to access the server. So we were basically able here to inject MFA, and that's with your existing MFA that everybody's already used to a resource that doesn't support MFA at all. And this could be any resource. Okay, maybe I'll show just one more example to make it clear. Maybe I'll show the example of, let's show an example of a shared folder. Okay, again, something that attackers love because you can't really protect that. And again, I'm getting MFA. Or maybe I'll just show it again, and I'm going to say, yes, this is me. And then I'm able to, once I approve, and by the way, this is with push, but I could approve this in many different ways with FIDO tokens or biometric or number matching. We support all the different MFA methods. I was now able to protect that resource with MFA. This works for things that you can only imagine, right? Anything that you can think about. We have customers protecting industrial systems. Think about OT environments. We can actually put MFA there. We have customers protecting their mainframe, protecting databases, protecting all kinds of admin interfaces. The possibilities are endless, and this allows you to solve one of these gaps that we just talked about. The other key area that we covered was the protection of the non-human identities, the service accounts. So what we do for service accounts is, first of all, we understand that visibility is an issue, right? You don't even know where they are. So the first thing we do is we automatically discover all the service accounts in the network. So all of these accounts are accounts that we believe are non-human identities. Maybe they're officially service accounts, or maybe they're just accounts that are being used as service accounts. We will pick up on it based on their behavior. So we will know that this account acts like a machine. It doesn't look like a human. And we will tell you that this account connects from these sources to these destinations this many times. We have a risk engine, and we'll show you that it's very predictable. So the first thing we do is we give you this visibility. We can tell you where the accounts are being used. I think you'll probably agree, and I think a lot of people here know, this is a huge gap for companies today. Then once we discover that, once we have that mapping of what is this service account doing, we can automatically suggest and create what we call a virtual fencing policy around it, but you could also think about it as a least privilege approach or a zero trust approach, where we basically say, if this account only connects from A to B, let's only make it possible for it to be used from A to B. So if it's being used anywhere else, maybe we'll trigger an alert, or maybe we will just block the usage of this account outside of this desired behavior. And this means that we can, even if somebody steals the password of this account, we will prevent them from using it to spread across the network. They can only go from A to B, so the damage is much smaller. Let me know if that's clear so far.
No, it is clear. Go ahead. I think we've got just a few more minutes left, Hed, and I know that the audience has some questions, and I'm not sure we'll be able to get to all of those, but
No, these are really the biggest things I wanted to show. So we showed two things, right? We showed how we extend MFA, any MFA, to any kind of system, and we showed how we can discover and protect service accounts without having to modify them, without having to break them. What's shared to these two things, and I think it overcomes a lot of the challenges we heard about in the survey, is we just make it easy. We don't need to modify those systems or install anything on them. So implementation in many of our customers takes just hours or days. Even in large companies, it will usually take just a little more than that. Because all we do is we connect to your identity solutions and we add all of these missing controls. We don't touch the servers, the applications, we don't modify them at all. So there's a lot more here, but I think much more than we will cover today. Right? There's a lot of visibility and insights and reports, but I want to keep it brief for today. Let me know if there's any questions from the audience, and I'm happy to answer.
Yeah, so one of the questions here that I think we'll pick on is actually coming from Brian, and Brian's asking, why is MFA coverage so low?
So I think the main reason is MFA is just very difficult to integrate into every system. So to some systems are just have MFA built in, right? SaaS applications and things like that. But to many others, you would need to install agents, you would need to put proxies in place, you would need to do all kinds of things that are very complex to do at scale. Sometimes it's just impossible. So I think a lot of companies check the box on MFA. So yes, they have MFA somewhere, but bringing MFA to all these critical assets was until now just too complex. I think that what we are able to do here and what I showed today, we're able to actually enable MFA anywhere on any critical resource, but until now it was just too hard to do.
All right, perfect. I think that's all we've got for all of our questions today. Because I know we're a bit over time, and I appreciate everyone who stuck with us here as we got to a bit over time. Hed, thank you so much for coming and spending time with us today. I really do appreciate it. Thank you to Silverfort for supporting the Hacker News webinar series. I know that you guys have been great partners, bringing amazing content to so many of our readership here. So we're always grateful. Thank you.
Thank you. It's great to be here, and thank you for the audience for staying a few minutes extra with us. Really appreciate it. And if you want to learn more, see more, please reach out, and we'd love to show it to you.
Yeah. So what's the best way to reach out?
So the best way is go to our website, silverfort.com, and you'll see an ability to request a demo or just send us a message through there. That's a great way to do it. You can also send us an email at info@silverfort.com, and we would love to show you a deeper demo, discuss any questions you might have. But most importantly, I hope that this this gave some people here some clarity or direction on where they need to invest in their identity security efforts. I think it's a very important thing, as we all know, and I know it's complex, it's challenging, but it's just so important that I hope everybody will be very successful on their journey to achieve it. And thank you, James, for having me today. It was great.
No, thank you to Hed. Thank you to the team over at Silverfort that stood behind bringing this report to the awesome Hacker News fans here. Sorry we couldn't get to all your questions. For those who have pressing questions, please email info@silverfort.com. They'll get to that. I know that the team that's on here is trying to answer as many of those virtually as they possibly can as well. It's just really, really hard. There's hundreds of you in this room at this time, so we want to be mindful of that. So on behalf of myself, the team over at Silverfort, and the awesome people behind your favorite website, the Hacker News, thank y'all for watching this latest webinar. If you have a topic or something you want us to talk about and cover, please make sure to let us know through the Hacker News suggestion, whether it be on your favorite social media platform or on the website at thehackernews.com. That's it on behalf of myself, Hed. Thanks again to the team over at Silverfort. Thank you all for spending the last 44 minutes with us. Have a great rest of your day, and most importantly, stay cyber safe, y'all.